I'm 93 years old, and I need to tell you something your family will never say to your face. You are going to end up alone, not because you're unloved, not because you failed, but because that's what aging does. It empties every chair in your house one by one, until the only voice left is yours. And most people don't survive that, not because their body gives out, because they never prepared for this 3 pillars. I have 4 children, 11 grandchildren, and I couldn't tell you the last time any of them called me first. I buried my wife Eleanor in 2011, buried my best friend Carl in 2016. My neighbor Walter, the man I played chess with every Thursday for 31 years, he died on a Tuesday in 2019, and nobody told me until the following Sunday. I found out at church, from his daughter-in-law, who didn't even sit down when she said it. So here I am, 93, still getting up at 5:40 every morning, still making my own coffee, still driving to the grocery store on Wednesdays, and people look at me and say, "Harold, what's your secret?" Like I've got some magic vitamin. I don't. What I've got is something most people don't want to hear, which is exactly why I'm going to say it. After 70, and I mean really after 70, not the early part where your knees still work and your phone still rings, your only reliable support is not your family, it's not your friends, it's not your church or the government. It's 3 things, 3 pillars, and if you don't have them built before you need them, you will spend your last years leaning on people who are not leaning back. I love my children, I want to be clear about that. My daughter Patricia is 67 now, lives in Scottsdale, calls every other Sunday. My son David is in Memphis, texts on holidays. My youngest Anthony, he checks in maybe once a week. And then there's Robert, my oldest. Robert and I haven't spoken in about 9 years. There's a reason for that, and it's connected to everything I'm about to tell you, but I'm not ready to talk about Robert yet. The point isn't that they abandoned me. The point is they grew up, got their own mortgages, their own marriages cracking, their own children pulling them in every direction. Love and support are not the same thing. Love is a feeling, support is a show-up, and after a certain age the showing up gets thinner and thinner, until one day you realize you've been sitting by a phone that isn't ringing, waiting for somebody to save you from a silence nobody else even notices. Maybe you know what that silence sounds like. Maybe you're sitting in it right now. If you are, stay with me, because what I'm about to share is the only reason I'm still standing. I refuse to let that silence win, and what I figured out didn't come from a book or a doctor or a sermon. It came from watching 2 people I loved fall apart and deciding I wasn't going to be the third. The first thing nobody wants to talk about, because it sounds boring, is your routine, your daily structure, the non-negotiable architecture of your day. Now listen carefully. I don't mean have a hobby, I don't mean stay busy, I mean build your day like it's a house you have to live in, because after a certain age, it is. It's all you've got. Let me tell you about Gerald Pace. Gerald lived 4 houses down from me on Birch Lane in Overland Park, Kansas, retired from Union Pacific in 1998 after 36 years. The day he retired, his wife threw him a party in the backyard, tiki torches, brisket, cake shaped like a train. Everybody clapped. Everybody said, "You earned this, Gerald." 6 months later, he couldn't get out of bed before noon, not because he was sick, because he had no reason to. His wife Doris had her quilting group, her church committee, her sister in Topeka. Gerald had nothing, no schedule, no structure, no reason to put on shoes. But here's where it gets hard to talk about. By 2001, he was drinking whiskey before lunch. By 2003, Doris moved into the guest room. By 2005, he weighed 290 pounds and hadn't left the house in 3 weeks. He died in 2007, heart attack, sitting in a recliner that had a permanent dent in the shape of his body. He was 74, and I'll tell you what killed Gerald Pace. It wasn't cholesterol, it was emptiness. A man who built his entire identity around a job, and when the job ended he had no floor. And by the way, I want to thank this channel for giving people like me a voice. Go ahead and subscribe. It's free. Like the video. And if anything I'm saying sounds familiar, put it in the comments. I read every single one, I promise you that. I watched Gerald disappear into himself, and I made a promise at his funeral that I would not follow him. When Eleanor died and the silence hit me, and it hits you like weather, like a pressure change in the room that never corrects, I sat down at my kitchen table with a yellow legal pad and wrote out my day. Every hour. 5:40 wake up, 5:50 coffee, 6:15 walk to the end of the block and back, 7 breakfast, 2 eggs, toast, half a grapefruit, 8 read, 9:30 chores. Wrote it like a shift schedule because that's exactly what it is. You're clocking in for the job of staying alive, and if you don't treat it seriously, the days will eat you. They will swallow you whole and nobody will notice until it's too late. That routine has kept me upright for 12 years. Not family, not friends. The routine. It's the first pillar and it's the one everybody ignores until they're already falling. But routine alone isn't enough, and I know that because of what happened to the strongest woman I ever knew. Her name was Marguerite Collins, and what she lost wasn't her schedule. It was something worse, something I didn't fully understand until years after she was gone. Marguerite was a retired school teacher, 4th grade at Westridge Elementary for 29 years. Sharp mind, sharp tongue, sharp dresser. She wore pearls to the mailbox every single day. Pearls. That's who Marguerite was. A woman who refused to let the world see her as anything less than put together. Her husband left her in 1987 with almost nothing. She raised 2 boys on a teacher's salary and never complained. But she never saved. Not because she was careless, because there was nothing left. Every dollar went into those boys, braces, baseball cleats, college applications, car insurance. Here's what nobody tells you about needing money from your kids. The money comes with a leash. It comes with opinions. It comes with, well, Dad, if we're paying for your insurance, maybe you should move closer. It comes with conversations about your house, your car, your independence that you didn't invite and can't stop. The moment you become financially dependent on your children, you stop being their parent. You start being their project. Marguerite hit 78, needed a new roof, couldn't afford it. Her son Craig, the dentist in Shawnee, paid for it, and I'm telling you, that roof was the beginning of the end of everything she was. Once he paid for it, he started asking questions. How much is your electric bill? Why are you paying for cable? Do you really need this much house? But here's the part that still burns me, and I need you to understand why. Within 2 years, they moved her into a senior living facility in Lenexa. Nice place, sure, clean, safe, but Marguerite didn't choose it. Craig chose it. I visited her 3 months after she moved in, and she was sitting by the window in a sweatshirt. No pearls. I asked where they were, and she looked at me. She looked right through me and said, I don't know who I'd be wearing them for. That sentence has lived inside me for 15 years. And if you've ever watched someone you respect just fold, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Independence isn't a luxury at this age. It's oxygen. You take it away, and the person doesn't die right away, but something behind their eyes goes out, and it doesn't come back. So that's the second pillar, your money. I was a pipe fitter for Honeywell for 38 years, saved like my life depended on it because I understood something early. Maybe too early. Maybe that's my flaw. Needing people is dangerous. Not because people are bad, because people are busy, and busy people make decisions for you they'd never make for themselves. Guard your money, grow it, even if it's modest, because modest and yours is better than comfortable and someone else's. Now, the third pillar. This is the one I almost didn't talk about, because telling you about this one means admitting something I've never said out loud before. Not to my children, not to my pastor, not to anyone. I didn't understand it until I was about 81, sitting at this kitchen table at 2, 0 inches the morning, unable to sleep, staring at a photograph of Eleanor and me on our wedding day, June 14th, 1958, First Baptist Church, Lawrence, Kansas, and I had this thought that scared me. I looked at that photograph and I realized I didn't know the man in it, not the young version, the current one. I knew Eleanor's Harold. I knew the Honeywell Harold. I knew Dad Harold, but just Harold, the man sitting alone at that table at 2, 0 inches the morning. I had no idea who he was. The third pillar is your relationship with yourself. I know that sounds like something off a bumper sticker, but stay with me because this is where the real thing is, and this is where I have to tell you about Robert. See, Robert is my oldest, and the reason we haven't spoken in 9 years isn't because of some big fight or some terrible thing he did. It's because Robert looked at me after Eleanor died and said, "Dad, you need to move in with us." And I said no. And he said, "You can't live alone. You're 82 years old." And I said, "I'm not living alone, I'm living with myself. And I need to find out if that's enough." And Robert took that as rejection. He said I was being selfish. Said I was choosing an empty house over my own grandchildren. Maybe he was right. I still don't know. But here's what I do know. If I had moved into Robert's guest bedroom, I would have become Gerald. I would have become Marguerite. I would have handed my days to somebody else and waited for them to tell me when to eat, when to sleep, when I was allowed to feel useful. And I watched what that did to people I loved, and I would not let it happen to me. So I stayed, and the cost of staying was Robert. That's the thing nobody warns you about with this third pillar. It doesn't just ask you to know yourself, it asks you to choose yourself, and sometimes the people you love the most will punish you for it. When you're young, you're surrounded, co-workers, neighbors, your spouse, your kids screaming in the next room. You are never alone, and because you're never alone, you never learn how to be with yourself. You never sit in a quiet room and find out if you can stand the person sitting there. Then you hit 80, 85, and one by one every chair in your life empties. Eleanor's chair, Carl's chair, Walter's chair. Suddenly you're in that quiet room whether you like it or not, and if you don't know who you are, not who you were to your wife, not Dad or Grandpa. If you don't know who Harold is, just Harold, alone with his coffee, you will fall apart. I've seen men survive wars and not survive retirement, not because they were weak, because they never built the one relationship that doesn't leave. Here's what I mean practically. I talk to myself, out loud, every morning I say, "Good morning, Harold," and I know how that sounds. I don't care. Some days I'm the only one who's going to say it. I read books and decide what I think about them. Not what Eleanor would have thought. Not what the pastor thinks. What I think. I sit on my porch, watch the street, and I don't reach for the phone, because the phone is just a way of asking other people to fill a silence you should be learning to sit inside of. Now I want to say something, and I need you to really hear it, from a man who has buried almost everyone he ever loved. The loneliest people I've known were not the ones who were alone, they were the ones surrounded by people and still invisible, because they never figured out how to be enough for themselves. They outsourced their peace to a spouse, to children, to a church group, and when those people drifted, as people do, as people must, there was nothing left. Just a body in a chair and a silence that sounds like a verdict. Don't let that be you. Build the routine. It'll carry you when motivation won't. Protect your money, even a little, even just enough to say, "I can handle this myself." And sit with yourself. Learn your own name again, not the name people call you, the one underneath. People will love you and still not show up, not because they're bad, because they're human, and human beings have limits. Your routine doesn't have limits, your savings account doesn't get tired, and your relationship with yourself doesn't move to Scottsdale. Anthony called last Tuesday, said he's bringing his daughter Elise to visit next month. She's 19 now. I haven't seen her since she was 11. I don't even know what she looks like anymore, but I'll be here. Same kitchen, same chair, same coffee. And when she walks through that door, she won't find a man who's been waiting to be rescued. She'll find a man who's been living. Robert still hasn't called. I don't think he will. But tomorrow morning I'll be right here, 5:40, coffee in my hand, saying good morning to the only person who never left. And the door will be open, in case anybody wants to sit down,